Hi, my name is Jim, and welcome back to another episode of Lowering Your Regulatory Compliance Costs. In this series, we're looking at the 7 mistakes that banking executives often make in managing regulatory compliance, which causes an increase year over year in the compliance costs. So this mistake we're going to focus on today is becoming overly dependent on outside consultants. So here's a couple of questions just to get your brain working. Did you hire more compliance consultants in the last year than, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Well, most of you would probably acknowledge yes, you have. Well, let's look at this pivot, the vision pivot. So in past episodes, we've talked about these pivots, these quick changes that you can make in your organization to get lasting value. The vision pivot focuses around changing the mindset of each of your compliance officers. The pivot is changing their vision from an operational level of management to a strategic level of management. I've put the pyramid here on the screen just to give you an illustration. This is from our management tech books, but most of your compliance people live in this area down here at the operational level of management, and of course have an operational level of thinking, a very admin, task-oriented thinking. There's the tactical level, and some rise to that tactical level, but often the strategic level of management, they're not involved at this level of the management. And I think from migrating from that operational to strategic is absolutely essential and will provide lasting value. It's a really important pivot. Think about this, your compliance officer truly becoming the centerpiece of your regulatory intelligence or your regulatory operations. That C.C.O. goes from being an admin to a leader at the executive level table here that we can see on our screen. This has accrues some benefits. First of all, lower training, both for your employees and your board, lower professional fees, the reliance on strategic advice and for project management, and then accrues to lower professional fees. Your compliance officer becomes your strategist inside your organization when it comes to compliance matters. The other thing is there's a reduction in the overall reliance for hourly consultants, things that you're paying for on a job basis, because given the confidence of this leader and the strategic nature, they're both evaluating each and every engagement, and I'll talk more about that in just a few moments, and they're also doing some of their own work internally. So you might be saying to yourself, can I really get my C.C.O. to that strategic level? So I like to use this quote: "He can who thinks he can, and he can't who thinks he can't." This is Picasso. It's the indisputable law. And I use that in reference to say, yes, this is possible, and I use this quote also to say to those that may say in the audience today is, well, I know my compliance officer, I really can't envision them in that role. I want to tell you it's possible, and I want you to believe that too, so it's not a foregone conclusion. It's possible in the confines of a system. We talked about compliance management systems a bit earlier on, and your support at an executive level. So what is the benefits that accrue here? I want to talk about a little bit about focus and the benefits that accrue to the organization from change in focus from operational to strategic. So think about daily tasks as a compliance officer. From a operational thinking, what's my next task? What do I need to do next? To let me review my alerts and progress reports. On a weekly basis, who do I need to remind or retrain? This is the nagging element. It's another nice way of saying that. To how are my processes progressing, and what areas can I change to make lasting improvements? On a monthly basis, what policies and procedures need to be updated? Is a very operational thinking. To project scoping for policy updates and regulatory changes. So changing projects and developing new and enhanced ways of doing things is very strategic in nature and accrues benefits to the institution. Think of it on an annual basis from an operational perspective. Are we ready for the next exam? So concerns or even horror over what's going to happen in the next exam, and has everybody done their work? To a broad scope review of process to determine potential efficiency. Can we do things better? That's very strategic in nature. So I jumped a few slides ahead here. You're going to get a taste of the upcoming. So this is the next value, or the next pivot is a value pivot. And this is a way of, once that you're strategic, you can actually slow your consulting or that spend. So this brings value to the organization in dollars and cents. So first thing to do in the value pivot is really to recognize the hourly consultant's motivation. What is, and that of course is to get more money. So they've often paid, if you're working with somebody that gets paid by the hour or by the word, they're going to be motivated to come back and write more words and write more pages and those kinds of things. So be very cautious of that. Next is identifying discretionary fixed costs. And I call it, end quote, discretionary. So often there's a slush fund in every budget here of some things that you need for a rainy day or for an emergency. And what happens with that in the consulting or with consultants is that if you have some discretionary spending, you spend it 1 year, often they'll call back next year and say, hey, do you need that service again? And it becomes fixed. So you want to stop that type of trend. If it's truly a one-time, then you want to identify that, and next year you make a decision on an ad hoc basis. Perform one audit internally annually. That's the last bullet point here, and I think over time, particularly in the gravy years in the banking world, we could spend a little more to take an internal audit and bring in an independent auditor to do that audit for us. But if we're trying to truly find some more value and you're thinking strategically, start to look at the areas, the audits that you can perform internally, and look to pull those in, and you'll get some value. So let's take a look at our value pivot and what it brings to us. Here's some numbers. So if we, now that we're thinking strategically and we don't have to rely on a general retainer to a consulting company to provide us periodic advice and training, we can eliminate that one retainer. So a modest $2,500 in my analysis here. A compliance audit, we're going to do one of those internally next year. If you look at that pivot and you make that pivot just that one internal, bringing one in from an outside consultant, you can save about $5,000. That's $7,500. Thanks very much for watching this episode. I hope you got a lot out of it. Provide feedback, and please join me again.